The HOA sent police to my front door before breakfast. By the time my wife opened that door, their whole story had already started falling apart. At 7:12 that morning, I was standing barefoot in my kitchen with a mug of coffee cooling between my hands when red and blue light swept across the wall. Once, twice, then again. A police radio crackled outside, followed by the slow crunch of tires over the gravel beside my driveway. I set the mug down and looked through the blinds. 2 patrol cruisers sat at the curb. Across the street, Vanessa Whitmore stood beside her white SUV with her phone pressed against her chest and that thin, satisfied smile I had learned to recognize. She wasn't surprised to see the police. She was waiting for them. I opened the front door before anyone knocked. The August air was already warm, carrying the smell of fresh-cut grass and hot pavement. One officer stepped toward my porch while the other remained near the walkway with a small notebook. "Daniel Mercer?" the first officer asked. "That's me." He explained that they had received a complaint from the Hawthorne Ridge Homeowners Association. According to the report, I had threatened an HOA board member and refused to surrender property that supposedly belonged to the community. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I tightened my fingers around the doorframe. 6 inches of dirt beside my driveway had somehow turned me into a dangerous man. "Who made the complaint?" I asked, although I already knew. The officer glanced toward Vanessa. That was answer enough. She started walking across the street, heels clicking against the pavement like she had been invited to supervise. "Officer, he's been warned repeatedly," she called out. "The board has documentation." Documentation. That word nearly made me smile because there was a 3-inch binder sitting 20 feet behind me containing 4 months of Vanessa's documentation, along with mine. Emails, notices, survey maps, timestamps, photographs, camera footage. Every little paper cut she had handed me because she believed nobody wearing work boots would bother keeping records. The officer asked if I would step off the porch so they could clarify the complaint. Before I could answer, I heard the lock turn behind me. The door opened. Vanessa stopped talking. My wife, Claire, stepped onto the porch in uniform, adjusting one cuff as if this were any ordinary morning. The officer with the notebook looked up, saw her nameplate and insignia, and his pen stopped halfway across the page. Even the radio chatter seemed quieter for a second. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Claire looked at the cruisers, then at Vanessa, then at me. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "What's going on?" she asked. Vanessa had spent 4 months convincing herself that I was just a contractor with an old pickup and no influence worth worrying about. Standing there in the flashing morning light, I watched her realize she had never bothered to learn who lived behind that front door. But the uniform wasn't the mistake that would bring her down. Calling the police was. Because Vanessa had finally taken 4 months of lies, put them into an official statement, and attached her own name to it. For months earlier, nobody in Hawthorne Ridge had any reason to know much about me, and that was exactly how I liked it. Claire and I had bought the house in early April, a 2-story brick place at the far end of Juniper Lane where the subdivision thinned out into older county property. The house needed work. That was part of the appeal. I had spent 19 years as a residential contractor, and I trusted old lumber and honest measurements more than polished sales brochures. On our first Saturday there, the garage smelled like sawdust, machine oil, and fresh primer, while my impact driver rattled against a row of new wall studs. My silver pickup sat outside with a utility trailer behind it, both carrying enough scratches to tell anyone paying attention that I actually used them. Claire was leaving for work when she stopped beside my workbench and kissed my cheek. She wore jeans and a navy jacket that morning, nothing that advertised what she did for a living. Most neighbors assumed she worked downtown. We never corrected them. Her job was her job, and our home was supposed to be the place where titles stayed outside. I first met Vanessa Whitmore before lunch. I heard her heels tapping across the concrete before I saw her shadow stretch through the open garage door. She stood there holding a leather clipboard, wearing cream-colored slacks and sunglasses large enough to reflect half my driveway. Her perfume reached me before her introduction did. "Daniel Mercer?" she asked. I shut off the drill. The sudden silence made the birds outside sound unusually loud. "That is me." She introduced herself as president of the Hawthorne Ridge Homeowners Association and immediately looked past me toward my trailer. Her smile tightened. "We have standards regarding commercial equipment." I wiped sawdust from my hands. Good thing I checked the covenants before closing. That smile tightened another fraction. I told her the trailer was permitted as long as it remained behind the setback line and was screened from street view after working hours. I even gave her the section number. Vanessa glanced at her clipboard without reading it. We prefer homeowners to cooperate rather than search for technicalities. That sentence told me more about her than any introduction could have. I had spent enough years dealing with inspectors, permits, easements, and building codes to know the difference between a rule and somebody's preference wearing a necktie. Still, I stayed polite. I moved the trailer into the garage that evening, not because Vanessa was right, but because I wanted peace more than I wanted an argument. 3 days later, a violation notice appeared under my windshield wiper for an unapproved mailbox finish. The mailbox had been there when we bought the house. A week after that came another notice about construction noise, even though I stopped using power tools before 7 every evening. Then came the fence inspection. Vanessa walked the edge of my driveway with 2 board members while I was measuring cedar posts. She pointed toward a narrow strip of grass and told me my property ended 6 inches closer to the house than my survey showed. 6 inches, barely the width of my hand. I looked at the brass survey marker embedded beside the curb, then at Vanessa. She smiled and tapped her clipboard. The association map says otherwise. I should have known then that those 6 inches were never about grass. The next morning, I called the survey company whose stamp appeared on the closing documents. By 10:30, I was standing at the edge of my driveway with a yellow tape measure stretched across the grass, while cicadas buzzed in the oak trees. The surveyor, a gray-haired man named Paul Reeves, brushed dirt away from the brass marker with the heel of his boot and checked his tablet twice. "Your fence line is correct," he said. "Actually, you have about 2 inches to spare." I looked toward Vanessa's house 3 doors down. "And the association map?" Paul gave me the kind of expression contractors use when somebody asks whether duct tape counts as structural reinforcement. An association map does not move a recorded property boundary. I paid for a certified copy and thought that would end it. I was wrong. 2 days later, Vanessa arrived in her white sport utility vehicle with a landscaping contractor and 2 orange stakes. The engine kept running while she stepped onto the grass beside my driveway. I could smell exhaust mixing with the sharp scent of freshly cut cedar from the fence boards stacked near my garage. "You cannot install this section," she said. I held up the certified survey. "County record says I can." She barely looked at it. Instead, she pushed 1 orange stake into the ground 6 inches inside my property line. The second went 20 feet farther down. "This is the community boundary. According to what? Our updated site plan." She unfolded a laminated map across the hood of her vehicle. A thick blue line ran beside my driveway. The problem was obvious. On my recorded survey, that line sat outside my parcel. On Vanessa's map, it had shifted inward. Only 6 inches near the street, but farther back the line widened until it touched the side of my driveway. That mattered. If her map became accepted as the working boundary, the association could claim control over the narrow access strip running toward my garage. I had spent 19 years reading plans. Small measurements can carry expensive consequences. "Who prepared this?" I asked. "Vanessa." Folded the map before I could examine the stamp. "The board has professionals. Then your professionals can speak with my surveyor." Her jaw tightened. "You are making this unnecessarily difficult." I looked down at the orange stake standing in my grass. "You moved a line on a map and put a stake on my property. I am not the difficult part." She pulled the stake out so quickly that damp soil clung to the bottom. Then she smiled again, but there was nothing friendly left in it. Hawthorne Ridge has procedures for homeowners who refuse to cooperate. The first certified letter arrived 3 days later. Unauthorized fence construction. $500 fine. 7 days to correct. The second came before the first deadline expired. Improper commercial vehicle storage. $250. Then another for landscaping modifications. Then another for failure to permit an association inspection. I spread them across the kitchen table one evening while Claire heated leftovers behind me. The paper smelled faintly of printer toner. "She is creating a record," Claire said. I looked at the growing stack. Then I should probably create a better one. I bought a 3-inch black binder the next morning. Every notice went inside by date. Every envelope. Every email. Every photograph. I downloaded the camera footage from the front door and workshop and backed it up twice. Vanessa thought paperwork was how she controlled people. She had no idea she was teaching me exactly how to document her. By the end of May, my black binder was already thick enough that the metal rings snapped shut with a hard click. Vanessa had stopped pretending the dispute was about neighborhood appearance. Every few days, another white envelope arrived with the Hawthorne Ridge logo printed across the top like an official seal. One accused me of blocking an association inspection. Another claimed my pickup created a commercial nuisance. A third demanded that I remove 6 feet of completed cedar fence within 72 hours. The fines climbed past $2,000. Then came the lien warning. I read that one twice at the kitchen counter while rain tapped against the windows and Claire poured coffee beside me. "They are escalating," I said. Claire took the letter and studied it without changing expression. "No, she is escalating. There is a difference." Claire had a way of separating emotion from facts that I had always admired. I wanted to march straight to Vanessa's house with the recorded survey and demand an explanation. Claire slid the letter back across the counter. "Do not give bad authority a reason to call itself legitimate. Make it prove itself." So I did something Vanessa clearly did not expect. I stopped arguing. Every letter received a short written response. Every response included the same certified survey. Every envelope got photographed before I opened it. Every email became a printed page in the binder. Then, on the first Monday in June, Vanessa made the mistake I had been waiting for. I was working 12 miles away, replacing water-damaged framing in an older house, when my phone vibrated against a plywood work table. Motion detected at workshop camera. I wiped the sawdust from my fingers and opened the live feed. Vanessa was standing beside my driveway with a man wearing a Hawthorne Ridge contractor badge. The afternoon sun flashed against her sunglasses as she pointed toward my fence. They walked past the small private property sign near the garage and continued along the cedar line. Neither one knocked. Neither one called. I watched the contractor pull a tape measure from his belt. Vanessa unfolded the same laminated map she had refused to let me inspect. The workshop camera caught them from less than 20 feet away. The microphone caught something even better. "The county marker is over there," the contractor said. Vanessa lowered her voice, but not enough. "I know where the county marker is. We are using the association line." I stopped breathing for a second. He hesitated. "Those are not the same line." Vanessa looked toward the house. "Daniel does not need to know that." I replayed those words 3 times. Then I saved the clip. I downloaded the original file that evening and made 2 backups. One went onto an encrypted drive in my office. The other went into secure cloud storage. I printed still frames showing there, positioned beside the survey marker, and added them behind a new divider in the binder. Claire watched from the kitchen table as I labeled it June property entry. "Are you going to confront her?" she asked. I closed the binder. Click. No, that answer surprised even me. Vanessa wanted an argument. An angry phone call. Something she could reshape into a story where she was the responsible association president dealing with an unreasonable homeowner. I was done giving her opportunities. 2 days later, another notice appeared in my mailbox. It claimed an association inspection had confirmed that my fence crossed onto community property. I held that letter between my fingers while the security footage played silently on my laptop. There it was in black and white. Her official version on paper. Her real version on camera. For the first time since this started, I did not feel frustrated. I felt patient. Patience became useful 3 weeks later at the Hawthorne Ridge monthly board meeting. The clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee, lemon cleaner, and damp carpet from an afternoon thunderstorm. I arrived 10 minutes early carrying nothing but my black binder. Vanessa was already seated at the long folding table beneath the association banner, arranging papers into perfect stacks like she was preparing for a trial she had already decided she would win. About 20 homeowners filled the metal chairs behind me. I took a seat near the aisle and waited. Vanessa moved through landscaping expenses, pool maintenance, and summer parking rules before reaching homeowner compliance. Then she said my name. Daniel Mercer has repeatedly refused lawful association access and continues to maintain an unauthorized fence on community property. Heads turned toward me. I could hear the air conditioner rattling above the ceiling tiles. "Daniel," she said, "would you like to explain why you believe association rules do not apply to you?" There it was. Not a question, a stage. She wanted me irritated. She wanted 20 witnesses to remember the contractor raising his voice at the respectable association president. I opened the binder instead. I would like the board to identify the recorded document establishing the boundary you are claiming. Vanessa leaned back. We have already provided the site plan. I asked for the recorded document. Her smile hardened. This argumentative behavior is exactly why communication has become difficult. I looked around the table. Then let us make it easy. County survey. Parcel number. Recording date. Silence. One board member began flipping through his packet. Vanessa interrupted him. We are not turning this meeting into a courtroom. I closed the binder. Fine with me. That bothered her more than an argument would have. After the meeting, she followed me into the parking lot. Rainwater glistened beneath the streetlights, and my boots made soft splashes across the pavement. You think carrying that binder around makes you clever? She asked. I turned. Her voice was quieter now, stripped of the polished tone she used inside. I think records are useful. You have been hostile from the beginning. I have disagreed with you. Same difference. That sentence stayed with me. I noticed movement near the clubhouse entrance. 2 homeowners were still standing beneath the awning. Vanessa noticed them too. Her voice immediately changed. You need to calm down, Daniel. I had not raised my voice once. I am calm. She stepped backward anyway, performing distance for an audience. Do not threaten me. The rain suddenly sounded louder. I did not threaten you. She turned and walked toward her sport utility vehicle without answering. I drove home with both hands steady on the wheel, but something cold had settled in my stomach. Claire was at the kitchen table when I came inside, a dark garment bag hanging from the back of a dining chair. She listened while I described the exchange. Then she asked one question. Were the exterior clubhouse cameras running? I looked at her. I think so. She nodded toward my binder. Request the footage tomorrow. I did. Hawthorne Ridge denied the request before noon, claiming the recording was association property. That afternoon, Vanessa sent a written complaint stating that I had behaved aggressively and made her fear for her safety. I read it twice. Then I placed it in the binder. The next morning, Claire left before sunrise. By evening, her uniform was hanging inside that garment bag again. Vanessa had finally found the story she wanted to tell about me. She just needed someone with a badge to believe it. The call came the following Monday morning, although I did not know Vanessa had made it yet. I was in the garage at 6:45, tightening a hinge on a cabinet door while the smell of coffee drifted through the open doorway from the kitchen. Claire had an early meeting and was getting ready upstairs. Her garment bag was gone from the dining chair. I heard the low rumble of an engine outside, then another. When I glanced through the garage window, 2 patrol cruisers were turning onto Juniper Lane. They slowed in front of my house. Across the street, Vanessa's white sport utility vehicle was already parked at the curb. That told me everything. I walked inside, washed the grease from my hands, and pulled the black binder from the shelf beside my desk. Before I reached the front door, someone knocked. 3 firm taps. I opened it and recognized neither officer. The older one introduced himself as Officer Mark Ellis. His partner, Officer Ryan Cole, stood several feet behind him with a notebook. Ellis was professional, calm, and careful with his words. Mr. Mercer, we received a complaint regarding an ongoing dispute with your homeowners association. What kind of complaint? I asked. He glanced at his notes. Alleged threats toward the association president, refusal to comply with a property access request, and concerns about escalating behavior. I looked past him. Vanessa was standing beside her vehicle, arms folded. She had dressed for the occasion. Cream jacket, dark sunglasses, clipboard. Of course she brought the clipboard. Did she tell you when I threatened her? I asked. Ellis gave me a date. The night of the board meeting. I felt something inside me settle into place. Did she tell you where? Clubhouse parking lot. Good. He raised an eyebrow. Good. I rested one hand against the doorframe. Because there were witnesses, cameras, and a written request from me asking the association to preserve the recording. Vanessa started across the street before Ellis could answer. Her heels clicked against the pavement. Officer, please be careful, she called. He has been increasingly confrontational. Ellis turned toward her. Ma'am, please let us speak with him. Vanessa stopped, clearly unaccustomed to being told where the conversation ended. Cole began writing. Mr. Mercer, Ellis said, would you mind stepping outside while we sort through this? I was about to answer when the lock behind me clicked. The front door opened wider. Claire stepped onto the porch in full uniform, fastening one cuff as she came. The morning light caught the insignia on her collar and the nameplate above her pocket. Cole looked up. His pen stopped. Ellis stared for half a second, then straightened slightly. Vanessa's footsteps went silent. Claire looked from the officers to me. "Daniel?" she asked. "What happened?" I handed her nothing. I explained nothing. This was my dispute, and Claire had been careful from the beginning not to insert her position into it. Ellis looked at her insignia again. "Ma'am, are you Commander Mercer?" Claire nodded once. "I am, but I am also his wife. So whatever complaint brought you here should be handled exactly as it would at any other house." That sentence changed the temperature on the porch. Vanessa had expected authority to work like hers did, through pressure and status. Claire did the opposite. She stepped back. "Officer," she said calmly, "before anyone relies on a statement about that parking lot, you may want to ask whether the original recording was preserved." Vanessa's face changed. Just slightly. But I saw it. I reached behind the door, picked up the black binder, and felt its weight settle into my hand. "I can help with that," I said. Officer Ellis stepped closer to the porch while I opened the binder on the small table beside the door. The plastic sleeves made a soft crackling sound in the morning air. I started with the certified county survey, then the violation notices, then my written request asking Hawthorne Ridge to preserve the clubhouse footage. Every page had a date. Every envelope had a postmark. Every email had a timestamp. Vanessa remained near the sidewalk, but her confidence was starting to leak away one detail at a time. "This is the property dispute," I said, pointing to the recorded boundary. "And this is the association map Vanessa used." Ellis studied both pages. "They are different. By 6 inches near the street. More farther back." Claire stayed beside the doorway without saying anything. She had made her position clear. She was my wife, not my shortcut. Officer Cole looked toward Vanessa. "Ma'am, who prepared the association map?" Vanessa adjusted her sunglasses. "Our property management professionals handled that." "Which company?" Cole asked. A pause. "I would have to check." I turned several pages and removed a printed still image from the workshop camera. This was taken June 3rd. Vanessa and the contractor were clearly visible beside the brass county marker. I pulled out my phone and opened the original video. The sound of cicadas came through the speaker first, then the contractor's voice. He mentioned the county marker. Vanessa answered that she knew where it was and that they were using the association line. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Daniel does not need to know that." Nobody spoke for a moment. Even Vanessa stopped trying to interrupt. Ellis asked me to replay it. I did. Cole wrote down the timestamp. "Do you have the original file?" he asked. "Original file, local backup, cloud backup." Vanessa finally stepped forward. "That conversation is being taken completely out of context." Ellis looked at her. "Then you will have an opportunity to provide the context." Her mouth tightened. I moved to the next divider. There was her written complaint from after the board meeting. She claimed I had approached her aggressively, blocked her path, and threatened consequences if she continued enforcement. I handed Ellis photographs showing the parking lot layout and copies of statements from the 2 homeowners who had remained beneath the clubhouse awning. Neither witness described a threat. Neither said I blocked her path. One had written that Vanessa approached me first. "And the clubhouse recording?" Ellis asked. I requested preservation the next morning. The association denied access. Vanessa folded her arms. "Because association security footage is private property." Claire spoke for the first time in several minutes. Her voice stayed level. "Privacy and preservation are different issues." Vanessa looked at her, then immediately looked away. Ellis closed his notebook. The sound was small, but it landed harder than any argument I could have made. "Mr. Mercer, based on what I have seen here, we are not taking enforcement action against you this morning. We will document the materials you provided and follow up regarding the conflicting statements." Vanessa's face went pale. "Officer, I called you because I feel unsafe." Ellis nodded professionally. "And your statement will be documented too." That was when I understood what Claire had seen before I did. Vanessa had spent months keeping everything inside the private machinery of the Homeowners Association, where she controlled the notices, the meetings, and the records. By calling the police, she had moved her story outside that machinery. Now there would be an independent report, names, dates, statements, and evidence she could not rewrite at the next board meeting. Claire glanced at the binder in my hands. Vanessa had expected the uniform to save me. It did not have to. Her own paperwork had already done the damage. The police report changed the neighborhood faster than any letter I had sent. By Wednesday afternoon, 3 homeowners had knocked on my door. The first was Tom Bennett from Cedar Court, a retired accountant who carried a folder under his arm and kept glancing over his shoulder as if the shrubs might report him. Vanessa had fined him $1,800 over a drainage strip she claimed belonged to the association. His county survey said otherwise. The second was Rebecca Sloan, a single mother 2 streets over. Her file contained 6 violation notices for a retaining wall that had been approved years before Vanessa became president. The third was George Palmer, who brought something even more interesting, an old Hawthorne Ridge development map from his closing documents. I spread it across my kitchen table beside mine. The paper smelled dusty, and the fold lines were soft from age. The original common property boundary did not touch my driveway. Not even close. Claire came home while the 3 of us were comparing documents. She changed out of uniform before joining us and listened without touching a single file. That mattered to her. "If this becomes an investigation," she said, "I cannot be part of building your case." I nodded. "You do not have to be." By Friday, I had 7 homeowners comparing notices. The language was almost identical. Different properties, different supposed violations, same phrases, same deadlines, same threats of escalating fines and liens. Then Tom noticed something I had missed. Several association maps attached to the notices carried revision dates, but no surveyor seal and no county recording information. They looked official because Vanessa had put the Hawthorne Ridge logo on them. That did not make them recorded surveys. I contacted Paul Reeves again. He reviewed copies and confirmed what I suspected. "These are internal drawings," he said. "They do not establish ownership." Then Officer Ellis called. His voice was measured. He asked whether I still had the email showing my request to preserve the clubhouse video. I did. The association had apparently informed police that the relevant footage was unavailable because the system routinely overwrote recordings. There was one problem. My preservation request had been sent the morning after the meeting, well before the normal overwrite period stated in Hawthorne Ridge's own security policy. I printed that policy and slid it into the binder. Click. Another divider filled. The following week, the board announced a special meeting to address homeowner complaints and document retention. Vanessa responded with a neighborhood email accusing unnamed residents of spreading misinformation and undermining community safety. She did not mention me. She did not need to. But the email did something she had not intended. More people started asking questions. By the night before the meeting, 11 homeowners had shared records with us. The kitchen table disappeared beneath surveys, certified letters, photographs, assessment statements, and printed emails. I stood there looking at months of paper and realized the 6 inches beside my driveway had never been the real story. Vanessa had built her authority on a simple assumption. Most people were too busy, too intimidated, or too isolated to compare notes. Claire leaned against the counter holding a cup of tea. "You know what happens tomorrow?" she asked. I closed the binder and heard that familiar metal snap. She finally has to explain everything in a room where everyone has the same paperwork. The clubhouse was full 20 minutes before the special meeting began. Folding chairs lined the back wall, neighbors stood along the windows, and the air smelled like burnt coffee and wet grass carried in on shoes after another summer storm. Vanessa sat at the center of the board table in a pale jacket with her clipboard positioned neatly in front of her. Same posture, same careful smile. But this time, nobody was waiting for her version of the story. I sat in the front row with the black binder on my knees. Claire stayed home. That was intentional. This was never supposed to become a contest between Vanessa's title and my wife's uniform. At 7 o'clock, the board vice president, Martin Hayes, called the meeting to order and announced that an independent property attorney had reviewed several homeowner complaints. Vanessa immediately reached for her microphone. "Before we begin, I think everyone should understand that a small group of residents has created unnecessary confusion by circulating incomplete documents." I heard chairs shift behind me. Tom Bennett raised his folder. Rebecca Sloan had hers open already. Martin looked at Vanessa. "That is exactly why we are reviewing the documents together." The first item was my property line. The county survey appeared on the projector screen. Then Vanessa's association map, 6 inches near the street, wider toward the driveway. Paul Reeves had submitted a written statement confirming that the association drawing was not a recorded survey and could not establish ownership. Vanessa said it was an administrative planning document. Martin asked why homeowners had been fined based on it. She did not answer directly. Then came the workshop footage. Cicadas buzzed through the clubhouse speakers. The contractor mentioned the county marker. Vanessa's recorded voice followed. She knew where it was. They were using the association line. Daniel did not need to know that. Nobody whispered this time. The room went completely still. Next came the violation letters. Mine, Tom's, Rebecca's, George's. Same language. Same threats. Maps without surveyor seals. Deadlines layered on top of deadlines. The independent attorney explained that the board would suspend disputed fines while every affected property file was reviewed. Then Martin addressed the clubhouse recording. My preservation request had arrived before the system's stated deletion window, yet the footage was no longer available. The board voted to refer the document retention issue and the conflicting statements surrounding the police complaint for outside review. Vanessa finally lost that polished expression. "This is ridiculous," she said. "I was protecting this community." Tom answered from behind me. "From 6 inches of Daniel's grass?" A few people laughed, but I did not. I opened the binder one final time and removed the first violation notice Vanessa had ever left on my pickup. Unapproved mailbox finish. It felt almost weightless now. 3 weeks later, Hawthorne Ridge sent written confirmation that my property fines had been rescinded. The board removed Vanessa as president pending the results of its review, adopted new rules requiring independent verification before boundary-related enforcement, and began reviewing similar complaints from other homeowners. My recorded property line remained exactly where it had always been. On a cool Saturday morning, I finished the cedar fence myself. Fresh cut wood filled the air while Claire watched from the driveway in jeans and an old college sweatshirt. I set the final post, checked the level, and tightened the last piece of hardware. Clang. The sound carried across the quiet street. I looked at the narrow strip of grass that had started everything. Vanessa thought authority meant having the right title, the loudest warning, or the most official-looking piece of paper. She thought Claire's uniform was what changed everything that morning. She was wrong. The uniform only made everyone look twice. The evidence did the rest. Justice is not loud. It is smart, patient, and inevitable.